That's another imprint of the federal government. Because the point is that I make is that the federal government is starting to intrude in agriculture, the agricultural economy, in ways that it had never done before. Nobody ever experienced anything like this. And now you have this kind of relationship with the federal government. The other thing I want to talk about, and here's another footprint of the past. Go out and you see it today, and to me it's very important. Whoa! Right here, Baca County, Southern Otero, Los Animas County, right there in the heart of the Dust Bowl. In 1934, the Agricultural Adjustment Administration got the idea, well actually, people have been talking about this for a few years, of buying back wind-eroded lands from farmers and turning it back to grass. Buy up farmland, move the farmers off, reseed it in grass. And then have some kind of controlled grazing management program there. This is a program that says sort of a mixed bureaucratic history. Partly because it wasn't funded very well. It goes from the Agricultural Adjustment Administration to the Resettlement Administration in 35, the Farm Security Administration in 37, to the Soil Conservation Service in 38. The thing is about this is a real monument of state planning. Here's the federal government saying, we're going to buy back farmland, and we're going to rip out the fences, we're going to tear down the houses, and we're going to move people out, and we're going to seed it to grass. You know, maybe that was ultimately, maybe plant some green sort of first, slow that soil down, and return it to grass, and then we're going to rent it back to farmers and cattlemen and control the grazing that's conducted there. The government will tell you how many cows you can run on that property, how much you're going to pay, and how long you can do it. June to July, November, that kind of thing. But isn't that a remarkable kind of state planning? We've never seen anything like that in agriculture before. How do you do it? We're quite sure how to do this. This is a monumental undertaking. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of planning. Oh, Sean, you giving me the hook? I told him I thought I might speak 15 minutes. See, here's the problem with people like me. You get going and just, yeah. So let me talk about a couple things. And I know you talk about it. So the agents come in and they'll target an area like they did in Southern Ontario, Los Animas, and Baca County. And they go in and they do a good sociological study. They look at farmers' income. They look at their mortgage obligations. They look at tax delinquencies. They would look at productivity on the farm. And then they would make an offer. Say, well, the government will buy you out. And here's what we're going to pay you. Give you $3 or $4 an acre. Cash money. It's yours. Problem is, as farmers wanted money, they often paid $15 to $20 an acre. The federal government was paying dry land, grass, grazing prices, not crop land prices. But there's generally an acceptance of this program in southeastern Colorado. The gripe was the government didn't pay enough money, and they didn't pay it fast enough. By the time you got your check, it might be a year before you sign the agreement to do this. Now, this isn't just moving people out of agriculture, it's a readjustment of agriculture. The people that stay would have an integrated program of grain and cattle, and it gets rid of some of these small farmers. The federal government's pretty callous about this. They said these are farmers that didn't earn an adequate living. Who's to say that they didn't? But anyway, it works. So they come in and they receive grass. And somebody knew how long this would take. Somebody say, how long is this going to work? What do you see? What kind of grasses? Somebody said, geez, I don't know. You can read this. It's in government reports. 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, might take 70 years. Nobody had a clue. But they're going to do it anyway. And they did. Here's that footprint in the past. This land utilization project passes to the Forest Service in 1953 and becomes the responsibility of the Department of Agriculture. In 1960, that Southern Otero, Los Animas, Baca County project becomes the Comanche National Grasslands. People say, what's a national grassland? That's like a national forest, except there aren't any trees. Go there, they're wonderful. Multiple use, once the Department of Agriculture or the Forest Service got involved, it became multiple use, wildlife, recreational activity, that kind of thing. There's a very remarkable, is it not, effect of the federal government on agriculture. You can see that footprint today. A little bigger blow up, Southern Otero. Pretty much. Now that isn't an entirely big block of land. Some farmers didn't want to sell out. Sort of like Indian reservations today, it's checkerboarded. Federal government here, private land here. So it's not entirely blocked in. The federal government still buys people out, but it is not a continuous area. Well, okay. Let me get out this sort of graceful, not entirely graceful, but sort of graceful. Let me skip the Agricultural Adjustment Administration where the government's paying people not to do things. I like this picture of this farmer who's looking at his first check. Is that really good? I'm getting paid for reducing my wheat production. Here's my money envelope. And that is, in the 1950s, I had more hands beginning in the hours saying that you knew the 1950s, dirty, filthy 50s, and some experience of that. But look at this. The drought is more widespread, and it's particularly centered in southeastern Colorado. Here's the difference. It's dirty, it's windy, you got dust storms. And my was telling me about this over the weekend, and my mother did too. We don't have black blizzards. I remember, images come to your mind from the past. It's like as clear as yesterday, and fragments and bits of information. I remember standing with my mother in our kitchen, and we're looking out to the west, and you can see sort of a thunderstorm coming up. There's like a yellow-gray cloud coming across the way like this. And I never did this. She said, I hope it's not going to start again. And to me, I didn't understand that. But she knew. And to her, that was a very powerful statement. But MS was talking about in western Kansas, dirty conditions that people sort of accept it and go on. Here's the key. The soil conservation activities of the 30s worked. Held the soil. We don't have the severe economic conditions of the 30s, and the federal government actually learned from the past. They have programs that are ready to go. They had grant money for farmers to get in and till their fields, list those fields. They had loan programs for cheap cattle feed and seed, and the response is very quick. So, from 1952 forward, particularly until the rains returned in 57, you've got a very serious drought condition, but you don't have the kind of erosion problems of the past. People can learn from the past if they're willing to act upon it. And in this case, I would say to you, the people of eastern Colorado learned a great deal. But it's a kind of experience that really is indelibly marked. You live through it, you don't forget it, even the 50s. I apologize.
No reason to apologize. Thank you to Dr. Douglas. Definitely a lot of great information, and of course, sometimes there's so much information, he just wants to tell it to you all. We don't have time for questions and answers today, but He is up here to chat with you individually if you would like. So please come on up and say hi. And very happy to have all of you here today. We'll see you again next month. Thank you. Stop by our information table on May 2.